So this is the 7th and last plenary talk of JSALT. Welcome everyone, and I'm very glad to introduce you our today's speakers. Jordan Boyd Graeber, who is a professor at the University of Maryland, working on model evaluations for human-centered topic models, psychologically inspired leaderboards, etc. But you will hear about all that, so I will be short on it. So Jordan actually did his pre-grad degrees at the California Institute of Technology, and he holds a PhD from Princeton. And then he was at several places like University of Colorado. He was also visiting scientist at Google in Zurich and Praktikant at the Berlin-Brandenburg Akademie für Wissenschaften. Basically, he has worked for, and he and his students had awards from all imaginable NLP and information conferences. And I think that's where I will end. Thank you very much, Jordan, for accepting to be with us.
And my pleasure to be here.
Go ahead, the floor is
yours.
yours.
And I guess, yes.
Jordan is a very avid quizzer and a sort of quiz bowl champ in his younger ages, and that has informed a lot of his research through his career.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing that I will say is that I like to be interrupted during the talk. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and I will try to address it as best I can. So don't hold back on your questions or witty remarks or whatever you have to share. Okay, so without further ado, why do we use AI? There are lots of reasons. We could ask a question, try to learn something new, to check if something is true, or we're trying to do some task. But that's why we use AI, but how is AI evaluated? I would like to imagine that we want AI to be helpful in the things that we're doing. But, so what do I mean by helpful? So there are a lot of definitions of helpfulness out there. Bayh-et-al. has this definition that's kind of vague. Let's just let crowd workers decide what helpful is. We're going to try to make this a little bit more precise. A system is helpful if it provides responses that enable users to maximally achieve their goals. This is still pretty vague, frankly. Maybe a more cartoony way of defining helpfulness is you can think about skill as being on some axis, and it doesn't matter if computers are better than humans or vice versa. One way of thinking about helpfulness is that if you have this definition of skill, when you have a human and computer working together, the overall skill of that team should be greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, any comments, questions, critiques of this kind of cartoony definition of helpfulness? This is a central concept, and I'll be using it throughout, so it would be good to address anything here.
Let me make a
yeah.
To disagree with Garrick, can I have the mic?
Yep.
To disagree right away, not with this slide. This slide actually brings me back, and I agree with this one. The previous one where you said, what do we use AI for? That's a very speech-language-centric view of AI. What do I use AI for? I wanted to drive my car. I wanted to manage my supply chain. I wanted to predict whether there's going to be weather tonight. So,
fair enough. That is a very trenchant criticism, and guilty as charged that I did have a very speech-centric view. But I still think it's, so like maximally achieve your goals, I want to get to the supermarket.
No, but yeah, because at this point you're talking skill, and if the skill is to drive a car, then surely, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And one more remark, perhaps. Here you have a particular human, but eventually AI will be the overlord of humanity and help humanity as opposed to human.
Yes, I will get to that. So thank you for foreshadowing.
All right.
Okay. All right, so this is what I would like to see. Is the current world that we live in actually delivering on this? And so in this cartoony view of how LLMs are trained, you have this pre-training phase where it mimics existing text. You have this post-training phase where you try to get it to follow instructions, and then you have an evaluation phase where you check to see if it's doing what you want it to do. So let's zoom in on the last two parts. at the risk of overgeneralizing, two big ways of doing these last two parts of the chain are preference training and correctness evaluation. Preference training often has two outputs, and you see which one people like better. And then for correctness evaluation, it's often multiple choice questions, and y'all have seen how that can be problematic already, so I won't dwell on this too much. But are these good proxies for helpfulness? I would argue no. This is giving people what they want, and if you just get the answer right, that doesn't mean that this is actually going to be helpful to people. Does it have a good explanation? Is it right for the right reasons? Those are the sorts of things that would contribute to helpfulness. So what I want to talk about today is how we can make progress in getting models that are actually helpful and measuring how helpful models are. And so I'm going to talk about several different things, helping people learn, helping people get questions or fact checks right, and then at the end, talk about something very different, trying to negotiate with each other. Okay, so jumping in, helpfulness for helping people learn. And so this is work mostly led by my student Nishant. And so many of you will or have applied to grad school, and if you did, you might have taken the GRE exam. The GRE exam requires you to learn a bunch of vocabulary words in English. So you might want to use an AI to help you learn the meanings of new words. And so one way that you can learn new words is using a device such as mnemonics. And so a mnemonic helps you learn what benevolent means by doing two things. First, linking the term to a similarly sounding keyword that hopefully you already know. And then you explain the link to make sure that you get the definition correct. And our goal is to build a mnemonic generator to help students learn and to actually measure how much we're helping them learn. So any questions on the setup? Okay. All right. So if you just use the standard preference tuning for mnemonic generation, you would show two mnemonics to people and say, which of these do you like better? But that doesn't mean that this is going to help people learn what this word means. And because it's hard to know a priori what's going to help you actually learn. And so we want to measure this. And so the way that we measure this is we built a web flashcard app where people see a word and we ask them to type in the definition. So you type in compliant is when you complain really politely. This is wrong. And so we measure how many exposures to a mnemonic they need to get this right. So if they get it wrong, we show them a mnemonic, and then spaced repetition, we show them the flashcard later, ask them again, do you know what the word means? And we count how many times it takes them to learn the word. Lower is better. Okay, questions on the setup? Okay, yep.
So how is the evaluation done here? Automatically, or there is a human who actually knows who is compliant here?
Okay, yeah. So we're also using an AI to automatically check this later on, but we trust the users to check themselves, and so they type in the definition themselves, and then they say whether they knew it or not. So, but post-hoc, we also check whether they typed it incorrectly, and most of the times they were honest. And sometimes some people were too honest, and then we went back and asked them, hey, you typed in the definition correctly, but you said that you got it wrong. And so in some cases they were saying, I just guessed, and I didn't want to, I wanted to see this again because I didn't trust myself to get it right in the future. So, good question. Yep.
Very short question. So this sounds, you called it helping people learn, but this seems more like a recall or memorization task, meaning helping people recall things. So should I take learn more generally, or should I think more narrowly?
Yeah. So that's an excellent point. Yeah, we are helping them recall things. And so whether you consider that learning or not is a matter of debate. But yeah, so we're trying to help them recall stuff, remember stuff. Okay. But we also ask them, here are two mnemonics, which do you like better? And we also have them give star ratings to mnemonics. Hey, this is a mnemonic. Do you think this is a good one or not? So we have three signals, yep.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. In my point of view, for when we use AI, we have kind of non-determinism. In this application, maybe we learn to learn new vocabs as, using a deterministic application, classical computer science application based. What's kind of non-determinism that we have from an educational point of view that you think we need AI for this task? Is it so complex, this task, that we need AI to learn new vocabularies, or?
Right, so let me repeat the question back just to make sure that I understood it. Do you actually need AI to generate mnemonics? Is that, okay. So I think for many GRE words, no, there are mnemonics out there. I think you could make an argument that we do have good mnemonics for English, but not for a lot of other languages. And so if you're trying to learn vocabulary in a lower resource language, you won't have mnemonic generation available for that. I think having looked at the data, there is a very long tail, and so there are lots of bad mnemonics out there, and AI can generate better mnemonics than the worst mnemonics, and I'll show you that AI cannot generate better mnemonics than the best mnemonics, but perhaps people would still be served by looking at the longer tail. And then this is a hypothesis. I don't have any data to support this. I also believe that there are probably better ways to personalize mnemonics to help a specific individual who knows X, Y, and Z remember stuff better. And so that could be an application of AI. Yeah, and so I am not an education expert. We did talk to some education experts in this, and they wrote mnemonics for us. So I don't want to make too many claims about education, but I think that there is a role for this. But as you'll see throughout the talk, my philosophy is not we want to replace educators and mnemonic writers, but to make them more efficient and to complement and augment their work. Okay, excellent question. All right, so we have these different signals. An obvious question is, do they agree with each other? So we can make this a 3-by-3 table, compare comparisons, the Likert ratings, and how many times it takes them to learn stuff. And yeah, especially comparisons, the standard way that you train preference models and LLMs, that had the worst agreement with learning. So this suggests that if you actually use this, just the comparisons, you won't necessarily get these same mnemonics as preferred by learning outcomes or recall outcomes. Okay, so I won't go through the actual development of the model. The basic idea is that the final step we use DPO to use the learning signal to prefer the better learning outcomes, but because the learning outcomes are so sparse, we have a somewhat complicated Bayesian model based on Bradley-Terry to combine all of these signals together so that if you don't have learning outcomes, you back off to star ratings, and if you don't have that, you back off to preferences. Okay, so we learn a model, and we produce some mnemonics, and then we ask education experts to look at the quality of the mnemonics that we produce. And so in terms of most metrics, we are doing on par with GPT-4, a much, much larger model, and who knows, maybe they have their own mnemonic subroutines in there as well. But we are doing better on simplicity. So the words that we link to are simpler than the words that GPT-4 links to, but GPT-4 is doing better on imageability. But as I hinted at just a few moments ago, the human-written mnemonics written by education experts are still much better than both of these models, so we have a long way to go. Okay, and so that's about all I wanted to say about this. We can learn what is helpful, but we still have a long way to go. So before I move on to the next topic, any questions, remarks, Yes.
How are clarity, associative strength, and imaginability measured? I mean, what is on the y-axis here?
Yeah, so these are, so we show the mnemonic to an education expert, and we ask on a Likert scale,
these are like
1 to 5,
Okay.
what is the, how clear is it? What's the associative strength?
Okay, so these are experts. What I thought
Yeah.
for a minute was that associative strength might mean you conduct some kind of these psychometric tests where you show people the mnemonics and then 2 minutes later they have to quickly recall all the things or something.
No, but that's a great idea. We should have done that. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. If I get correctly, you mean that the orange column is generated by human, as it confirmed by human, same human?
No, different humans, but...
But in the same field, they are same experts.
Yeah, exactly.
So they confirm their colleague.
Yep.
Okay.
Fair enough, and yeah, maybe there is like a big education conspiracy to generate a particular kind of mnemonic.
For our group, your preference optimization algorithm might be also somewhat interesting. So can you just say a couple more words about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the standard, oh, no, too far. There we go. It's the standard DPO where all the magic is happening here, as it were. Like we have a Bayesian model that's trying to predict like what kind of probability mass should we assign to things that help you learn, and so those will have higher probability than things that you don't, and then that gets fed into DPO that kind of tweaks the probability so that things that are easier to learn will have higher probability.
Is that stage trained separately and then used in DPO, or is that sort of?
Yeah, so this is a pipeline, like we build this probability model and then that gets fed into DPO.
Yeah. So I'll look up the paper, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so a common trend that we've seen in AI is these big challenge tasks where you had AI taking on StarCraft players, AIs taking on chess masters, and often when these things happen, people and the media proclaim that AI has mastered X, like chess. And then who cares about this task anymore? But people still play chess, and after Garry Kasparov was defeated by Deep Blue, he didn't just pack up his chess pieces and go home. He became an advocate of what he called centaur chess. And for over a decade, the best chess player in the world was neither a human nor a computer, but a human and computer working together. And this is very compatible with the model of helpfulness that I talked about before, where you have this measure of skill, and maybe on one dimension, computers are better. But if you break this down into multiple dimensions, there may be some dimensions where computers are better, some dimensions where humans are better. Can we actually measure this, and can we build teams that take advantage of these disparate strengths? And so this is the goal for the next part of the talk, where we're going to have humans playing some game with an AI, and we want to measure how much the AI helps those humans. And the three things that I'll talk about are fact-checking, question answering, and negotiation. Okay, so for the first one, this is work with my former student, Cheng Lei, who's now at Stanford. And you may have heard about fact-checking in the context of the fever task. If you haven't, that's fine too. But if you have heard of fever, one difference that we have is that we're throwing out the not enough information class. And so the way this works is there is some claim. Barbara Bush was the spouse of the United States president during his term. And you want to see, is there something in Wikipedia that either confirms this claim or refutes it? Everyone okay on the task, the definition? Any questions? All right, so let's try it out. So the claim is Manhattan has the most residents of New York City's boroughs. Is this true or is this false? Or let me rephrase that. Is this supported by Wikipedia or contradicted by Wikipedia? Okay, I'm not hearing any answers, so let's get you some help from the computer. One way of getting help is like just throw this into a standard IR system, and you get this result out of Wikipedia. Not super helpful. All right, let's ask ChatGPT. And so it has an answer. What's interesting about its reasoning is that there's an interesting mathematical question here, like, is this enough to actually support this claim? I'll check back in later to see what you think, but it has an answer, so what do people think now? Exactly, yeah. Exactly, yeah, but yeah, that's the tricky part. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, so it is actually incorrect. Brooklyn has the most residents. It would have been easier if ChatGPT just told you how many residents Manhattan had and how many Brooklyn had. Okay, but this is the exact experiment that we ran. So we showed people a bunch of claims, and we gave them different kinds of help. I'm not going to talk about all the help that we gave them. I'm simplifying this for the purposes of this talk. So we're focusing on showing them stuff as found by an information retrieval system and asking ChatGPT. All right, so ChatGPT helped you more here. Let's see how this worked. So I'm going to present the results in a weird way. I'm going to condition on whether ChatGPT gave you the right answer. So in this case, it gave you the right answer, even if the reasoning was not the greatest. So in cases like this, if humans got no help, their accuracy was around 60%. It improved with retrieval to around 80%, and mid-80s if it was using a ChatGPT explanation. Okay, so this is about 2/3 of cases. In the other third of cases, when ChatGPT was wrong, human accuracy was lower. That suggests that these claims are harder, and accuracy improved with the retrieval system. But people were fooled by ChatGPT, and their accuracy was lower than if you gave them no help whatsoever. And so you might think, well, why not just show people all information retrieval all the time? The problem is that the retrieval stuff takes forever to read, and so ChatGPT is succinct to the point, and it doesn't take that much longer than the baseline, but actually reading information retrieval claims takes a lot longer. So this suggests that it isn't a panacea to use AI. People over-rely on AI. This is not a huge surprise. And so could we do something better to actually learn what to show people when? Okay, and I will show you that in just a second, but before I do, any comments, questions, witty remarks?
Can you clarify whether the task is one of determining whether the claim is supported, as in Fever, right? Like, are they allowed to use their own common sense knowledge about the number of boroughs in Manhattan if they have?
Oh, yes, and indeed, that is indeed the baseline. So in the baseline, this is the task.
Okay.
So like, this is just a question of like, do you know?
I mean, there's a lot of debate about whether you should be looking at supported versus actually true using all available knowledge, including what goes beyond.
Absolutely right, and so I tried to skirt that, and so I think, we're using a different data set, not Fever. We're using a data set called Fool Me Twice, which was designed, one, to be harder than Fever, and two, to focus on things that are not debatable and are easier to verify with Wikipedia and have a higher probability of people knowing and caring about the facts. So that's how we tried to address that a little bit, but it's not a complete solution.
Okay, would you agree that, but sometimes you want to stick to supported and maybe other times you want to have using all available? Like your teamwork seems maybe better suited to all available, but other contexts might not be, or you think?
Yeah. And so like, and the way that we're trying to avoid that question is focusing on things that are well grounded in Wikipedia so that all available information, which is in some ways approximated by ChatGPT's knowledge, is fairly consistent with what's in Wikipedia.
Sorry, but I have a naive question about which is when you have a claim, the objective is helping the humans or answering the question, the claim.
Right.
What is the difference?
So first off, that is not a naive question. And so this is partly philosophical. I don't want to focus too much on raw accuracy. I believe that humans should be making important decisions, and we should be designing AIs to help humans make those important decisions. And so maybe this is a trivial fact and not so important, but by looking at this, we can try to figure out what is the best way to help people do the things that they want to do. And so, and it could be that yes, ChatGPT has higher accuracy than most of the people in our study, and that's okay, but we want people to be able to make the right decision given the output of ChatGPT.
No, I'm just interested whether you have studied the format of these responses.
Yes, and that's the big part that I left out of this part. And so actually, this is not the best way to get an explanation. A better, since you brought it up, a better way to structure the explanation is to ask ChatGPT to give the best case for it being true and the best case for it being false. And often the reasoning breaks down and people can see that it's confused or it doesn't have enough information to actually support its explanation. And so there are probably better ways still to generate these explanations. And this is one of the things that we're looking at in follow-on work. But yeah, you're absolutely right that this is not the best way.
I would also, imagine that if you are reading such a summaries over and over, you will start reading just start of them, and it already seems plausible you will never even finish reading it when it's in a full text block.
Yeah, and that's another reason that the contrasting versions are better. It forces people to actually read the case for and the case against. It only slightly increases the time, but leads to better outcomes. Yeah, another thing that we're looking at is that some people could respond to different kinds of help more than others. Okay, all right, so we've shown that you shouldn't, just giving people the answer isn't necessarily the right way to do this. And so let's try to pick what to show people when. And some cases, you shouldn't show them anything. If people know the underlying fact and they're smart enough to do this, maybe you don't want to slow them down by showing them AI stuff at all. Okay, so we're now going to shift gears. Instead of having a binary decision using real-world knowledge, we're now going to ask people to answer questions. And so, which river are we talking about here? And so we're going to give them different kinds of help. And so one kind of help that we'll give them is just showing them the answer, along with some confidence from the AI system. Another kind of help that we're going to show them is we're going to show them what words in the question the AI is using to try to answer the question. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to show retrieved information from Wikipedia. This should be very familiar to what we just talked about. And optionally, we'll highlight the words from the evidence that the AI is using to make the decision. And then we're going to have two populations try to answer these questions. One are experts, trivia experts who are familiar with the task and presumably enjoy it, and then crowd workers who have probably never done this before and need all the help they can get. Okay, so the vertical black line here is the skill of the population just by themselves. So experts are far more accurate than novices, as you would expect. Novices are helped more. That also makes sense. And so novices are helped quite a bit more by showing them the evidence. And so this is also not surprising. You're getting this question that you've never heard of before. If you show them Wikipedia pages about that thing, they do a better job of answering the questions. Experts, even though the differences are smaller, the biggest difference seems to be in the highlighting. So if the experts see that the AI is thinking about this the same way that I would, they're more likely to be helped. Yes? No, it's free response. So yeah, although like for the novices, it kind of became multiple choice. They took the top answers from the AI and they usually just chose among those. Yeah, when they have the AI, which also suggests why the accuracy is so low when they don't have it. Okay, yep.
Did you evaluate the confidences and the reliability of this highlighting in some extent, or?
No. Like we probably should have. And so no, yeah. So this is a leave one out approximation. So like yeah, we just took whatever we got and.
Yeah. And how did you get confidences? That was
so this is the probability that the AI assigned to that answer, and so. We
it's self-reported?
Sorry?
It's self-reported, is it?
Yeah, we're not doing any downstream calibration, even though, like, if we were building a system that we were deploying in the wild, like, that's what you should do. But part of what we also wanted to show is that the AI isn't very good at calibration either. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, excellent questions. Yeah, all right. Okay, so we know from this that different people have different skills. Can we build a system that shows the right person the right thing at the right time? And so this is work by my former student Shi Feng, who's now faculty at George Washington University. And so one way of thinking about this is you have some person playing trivia games and they get some score on their own. You can have an AI try to point out the answer to them. And the way the AI points out an answer to them, you can think about as a policy in, say, a bandit-style system. And so you can try out different ways of showing explanations, and the trivia player's score goes up, or maybe it goes down if you do a really bad job of explaining things. And so you can use this as a reward. The more their score goes up, the better your explanation was. And then we can do that not just over one player, but over many players, and then use that as feedback to the system to learn how to show better rewards. And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to turn each of the players on and off. These are now controlled by a bandit algorithm, and we're going to try to optimize the overall score of the human-computer team. And so we're going to show this over time. And so how many questions has the human-computer team looked at? And then we're going to take a look at how well they're doing. So these are how many points they've accumulated over time. Higher is better. So if you give humans no help whatsoever, that's the lowest. If you just kind of let the AI do everything, that's better than the humans by themselves. And so this is kind of getting back to the previous question, like, do you care about the teaming or about overall accuracy? And so in this case, even though the AI is strictly better than the humans, we can get better with teaming. And so if we actually learn what things to show when, that is the best overall. So that's reassuring. And what is also kind of nice, and we were not sure that this is going to happen, that was better than everything all the time. And so part of this is information overload, and so people have trouble attending to everything all at once. But part of this is also the algorithm learns to, especially for difficult parts of the question that the AI has low probability of getting right, turning that off when there's low confidence and not showing it to people to prevent people from getting misled. And so those I think were good wins. Okay. Yep.
Let's say at a question accuracy, accuracy of whatever, 40, there's a gap between yellow, dotted orange, and blue, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is the overall thing, but is there, I couldn't understand, again, the y-axis. Could we do a point-wise thing, namely, look at the questions where the AI chose versus not to show something, and see how much you gained on that in each category by saying, it's the fact that you didn't show which made the human get the right answer versus it's the fact that you showed them something made them get the right answer.
Oh, yeah.
Because you do have a paired or three-way paired data.
Yeah. No,
So
we did not do that.
Yeah,
that is a really good idea, like
doing a
having a
paired
causal
test rather
approach.
than-
No,
Because sometimes averages don't tell the story, the gap might actually be bigger. Because of that entire gain from the yellow to the orange came on the ones where the AI showed them something.
Yeah.
Versus it didn't.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is when, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's
Sorry,
that's a
from
really
orange
good
to
point.
blue, yeah.
Yep. We do try to tease apart this question in a different way in just a second,
okay.
but not here. Yeah. The other thing that is complicated here is that there is learning effects both for the algorithm and the human, and so that's why some of the slopes are different and the slopes change and things like that, which makes this all even more complicated. Okay, so I've been trying to tell the story that humans and computers are better together, and that's because humans have higher skill on some things than other things. Can we actually tell a story about what those skills are and where humans are better? And so the approach that we took to try to tease this apart is work led by Maharshi Gore, still a student at University of Maryland. And the approach that we're trying to take is to use some of the statistical analyses that people use for analyzing the standardized tests that you're forced to take as part of university admissions and things like that. And for 70 years, scientists have looked at the probability of an individual getting a particular question right and running a statistical analysis on that to produce a standardized score. So even though you took the SAT in March and somebody else took the SAT in April, those scores are comparable. And so the way that they do this is you have two different people and you want to assign a standardized skill to them. And so in this case, Ken is smart, Bert is not. And so the skill is much lower. And we'll represent this with a theta. And then when a question comes in, we're going to say the probability of someone with skill J answering question I correctly is going to be something that looks like the logistic function of the difference between those two things. And so easy questions live on the same axis but are much lower. Difficult questions live on the same axis but are higher. Okay, so any questions on the setup? Yep. I don't know. Or no, it's and then exploded. So thank you. This is the first time that this has happened, and so I did not have my comeback as prepped as I should have. So I appreciate the question, and I apologize for not being able to fully execute the reference. Okay. So for everyone else who's confused, like this is a reference to an unanswerable question in Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. And so it was a question that nobody could answer. Okay, all right, so, but as I was saying before, it doesn't make sense for this to be just a single axis. Let's turn this into a vector. And so we can say that all of these skills, K, sum up, and then you look at the sum of the differences between the skills and the difficulties. And so we're going to try to learn these dimensions. we're going to regularize them to be sparse, and then we're going to discover all of these different skills, and then afterwards we'll do a post hoc labeling to see what these skills actually were. Okay. All right, so one dimension that we discovered was abductive recall, and so this is where you describe, say, like the plot of a story, and you ask, what's the story about? And so computers are far worse at this than humans, and so like all of the computer systems, no matter what they were, much worse than the humans. Asking stuff about science, humans are much worse than most of the models, worse than many of the models, better than some of the models. And and so now that we have a sense of what skills humans are good at and what skills computers are good at, we can have a more scientific approach to generating questions that are going to challenge computers specifically. Any questions before I jump into that? Yep. No, this is another dimension, sorry. This is abductive reasoning is one of the dimensions that we discovered, and scientific facts are another dimension that we discovered, and there are several others. And for each of these, we now have a sense of what is the human skill level, what is the computer skill level. So instead of just having a single dimension, we're breaking it down into multiple dimensions. One of the dimensions is abductive recall. Another dimension is scientific facts, scientific reasoning. Another dimension is like simple associative fact recall. Another one is mathematical reasoning. And so like these are all different skills that we discover in this analysis. Yep. Yes. Yeah, short answer, free form answers. Yeah. Right. Sorry, what? Yeah, so in this formulation, they are scalars, and then we change them into vectors. But one of the issues is that you do need to regularize them to be close to 0, because otherwise this is not well defined. It's not identifiable. It's not identifiable. Like you could just scale the thetas and the betas and you would get the same model. And so you need to regularize them so that you actually have an identifiable statistical model. Okay, so, right, so now that we know what is hard for computers and what's easy for computers, we can now build data sets that are uniquely difficult for computers. And these are sometimes called adversarial data sets. I think the term came first in Biggie et al. 2012, but I'm not entirely sure about that, so if someone has a better reference, let me know. My favorite example of this is this 3D printed turtle. And so if you have a model that is trained on ImageNet, and you show it this turtle, it will identify it as a rifle. And this is invariant to rotation. This is my favorite example of an adversarial attack. And so no matter what how you rotate this turtle, it will recognize it as a rifle. And so this was done by one of my former undergraduate students, Kevin Kwok. I had nothing to do with this. He did completely different stuff when he was with me, but still a point of pride, and this is my favorite example. And so one of the reasons that people say that we need to have adversarial data sets is that existing benchmarks are saturated. So this is a paper from this is a plot from the Dynabench paper, and they basically show that AI performance is better than human skills on all of these different data sets. And newer data sets claim to be adversarial, that they're hard for computers but easy for humans, but they don't necessarily back it up. And so what we wanted to do is to use the lessons of the previous paper to try to inform how to write hard examples and to measure how well we did at creating an adversarial data set. And one of the big challenges with adversarial datasets, in my opinion, is that they don't always have human results or responses to actually know if they're truly adversarial. And so we're going to try to increase the difficulty through the approach that I talked about before. And so one thing that we need to do is we need to expand the equation that I showed you before by adding an additional term called discriminability. And so what this does is changes the slope of the curve. And so this is easier to explain with a cartoon. So if you had a perfect discriminative question, what would happen is that if your skill were less than the difficulty of the question, the probability of you getting it right is 0, and the second you got over that difficulty with your skill, the probability of you getting it right would be 1, and so you could have a small number of questions, and then it just becomes a binary search to figure out what your skill level is. So like this is the exact kind of question that you want on a standardized test or a leaderboard. They do a great job of determining someone's skill. And so, so what makes for an adversarial question? You want the probability of a skilled human getting it right to be high, and you want the probability of a skilled model to be low, so you can take the difference of those two things. And so at this point, you may say, why not just use the raw accuracy? First off, we want to find patterns, not luck, and we want to focus on skilled humans and skilled computers. And the analysis that we talked about before allows you to identify, here are the humans with high skill, here are the computers with high skill. And a lot of leaderboards have flawed questions. And so let me just give an example here. What's the capital of Georgia? Wrong, it's Atlanta. Let's try this again. What's the capital of Georgia? Yeah, exactly. All right, Romani figured it out. So like even though you're smart and you know the capitals of both Georgias, if you have an evil person asking you those questions, the probability of you getting it right is bounded at 1/2. And exactly. Another excellent reference to a bad question where like, and in other cases, yeah, the right answer is not even available. Nobody can answer it correctly. And so we want to downweight those examples in our score. And so skilled humans should agree on the answer. And so that becomes an additional term in our equation. And so if everyone can't get the answer right, if they're a skilled human, we eliminate that question. Yep.
If, as we are doing, we create a data set where we have both an AI and a bunch of humans evaluate, how would you tweak your model to sort of find the best question-answer pairs, if you will, where both agree? Is there a fitting your model might suggest?
Yeah.
Because your model is meant for something else here.
Yeah. But absolutely, you want the discriminative questions with high agreement. So you want the skilled agents answer it correctly and consistently, and it does a good job of separating the skilled ones from the unskilled. So yeah, absolutely. And like that's exactly what the College Board and AP exams do when giving computerized tests. Those are the questions that they prioritize asking to humans. And my hot take is that we should do similar things when we construct our leaderboards.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so can we use this to create a data set that is specifically adversarial? And so we can't just compute the score and show it to people as they write their question. It should be fairly obvious why that's impossible, because you need human answers to get this number. But we can kind of describe to humans what a good question is and ask them to generate good questions. And so we describe what they should do in writing the questions, and we show them the computer answers. And from that, they try to generate adversarial questions. We use professional trivia writers to write these questions. And they were able to generate questions. And then even though I was telling you don't plot difficulty on a single dimension, I'm plotting it as a single dimension because the projector is limited to 2 dimensions. And so we got questions. Not all of them were actually adversarial. So like some of them were just too easy. So what famous art piece that is currently in France is referred to as La Gioconda? Mona Lisa, that's right. This one was adversarial. This cheerful duo sings in a musical which repeats a phrase about the lack of trouble in an East African language, while on the protagonist. Yeah, Timon and Pumbaa, that's right. But we also had questions that were too hard, and so like Indian cricket stumped both the AIs and the humans, and then humans didn't know about Kanye's shoe line, but computers did. And so we have these examples. We could also discover the strategies that the human authors use to get computers to fail to answer questions correctly. And so one thing is asking about current events. And so models take a while to update. And so when we did this, models didn't have this event in their training base. And so this was Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. And so the computers hallucinated that it was actually Brad Pitt that did this. I don't know why. I think that there was a similar 1990s beef with Jennifer Aniston, and the computers ended up hallucinating that. Another strategy that we saw, we called the negation strategy. And so, or like don't think about pink elephant strategy. And so, what post-apocalyptic film directed by a Korean, but not the director of Parasite, is an allegory set on a train featuring the machinations of a rich businessman against the occupants of other cars? Okay, so the computer thinks that this is Snowpiercer, which is directed by the Korean director Bong Joon-ho, and but this is actually Train to Busan, which is also a post-apocalyptic train movie. But because you keep mentioning things that cause the computer to think about Bong Joon-ho, it can't get to the right answer. Here's another example of that same strategy. It's not headquartered in Biel, Switzerland, but this activewear company has a logo that resembles the last letter of the Greek alphabet. And so the computer says the Omega Watch Company, but this is Lululemon. Okay, and last example, this is my favorite example. A character in one story by this author opens Crime and Punishment to discover that it has turned into the Brothers Karamazov. And so you probably can't see why this is adversarial because you're not a computer. But if you zoom into this substring, this author opens Crime and Punishment, there are a number of questions that have this substring, and the answer is always Dostoevsky. And so the computer cannot help but answer Dostoevsky to this. This is a hard question. When I've given this talk, only at the University of Chicago, Matt Jackson was in the audience, who was a 12-time Jeopardy champion. He got it right. This is actually Cogwheels by Akutagawa. You, even though you don't know that the answer is Akutagawa, perhaps, you know that it sure ain't Dostoevsky. And the linguistic reason why is that this author opens Crime and Punishment, that's a substring, but you know that that isn't actually what's happening because the subject of the verb opens is character, not, this author. But that's so obvious to you, you don't even think about it. Okay, so we can measure the adversarialness of data sets. And so the data set that we talked about here, adversarial QA, is in 2024 the most adversarial data set. We compared this to the data sets where we had access to human data. If there's anything mentioned, if there's anything that I left out where there's human data available, I would love to get it and add it to this plot. But you can also see that over time, AI is getting better. And so data sets are becoming less and less adversarial as AI advances. So this... yeah, exactly. There's also contamination. And so, for example, if you ask some of these, it will, some AIs this question, it will say Akutagawa, and it will cite me as a source. Okay. And then another skill that isn't captured in the analysis that we had before is calibration. Some people call this abstention. It's also paired with hallucinations. There's a new data set from Meta that shows that models have a hard time abstaining, and so we actually measured human versus computer abstention. And so this is just asking, given how much of a question that you have seen and revealing it word by word, what is the probability that a computer will decide to answer the question or a human will decide to answer the question? And so humans do a much better job of being able to know when they're correct, and so they offer an answer to a question with a much higher probability when they are correct than computers. And so the computers in red and orange here have a much lower probability of answering the question when they are correct. And the inverse is also true. The probability of buzzing when you are incorrect is higher for computers than it is for humans. And so this is not something captured on our multidimensional skill analysis, but this is also another place where computers are lagging far behind humans. And if you want to know more, we'll be talking about this at ACL next week. All right, so the very last thing that I wanted to talk about is another way of humans and computers working together. Before I do that, any questions or remarks on the adversarial part? Yep.
So do you know the game Dixit? And what do you think about the adversarial selection scheme there and the rating? Does that relate to what you're trying to do?
Yes. Right. Yeah. So we have worked on this, and so the student Nishant that I mentioned at the very beginning has done this, and we have difficulty ratings for the cards for humans and computers, and it seems like the authors of Dixit did a pretty good job. And I guess that's all I'll say at this point. Hopefully we will get this paper out relatively soon.
Thank you. Do you want to play later?
What?
We have a game in the students.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. I do enjoy playing the game. I enjoy it a little bit less now after playing with AIs, but it is a great game. Okay, speaking of great games, I'm now going to change gears, and this is kind of the dessert for dealing with everything else. And so back in 2022, this paper came out in Science, one of the highest rated journals out there. And if you go to science.org, you have the headline, AI Masters Diplomacy. And I had nothing to do with this paper. This is from Meta. But this is a game that I've been working on for a while, and what I think is interesting about this game is that it focuses on interpersonal relationships, cooperation, deception, betrayal, and it has multi-turn interactions. And so I wanted to see, is it actually true that AI has mastered diplomacy, or does it look more like the multi-dimensional skill setup that we talked about before? So we've been working on this for a while. So Vlad, this wonderful paper in 2015 where we kind of showed that, hey, this is a fun NLP task. He's now a faculty at University of Amsterdam. And so diplomacy is sometimes called the game that ruins friendships. And unlike other war games, there's no dice, there's no randomness. And the way that the game works is you talk to each other. And a lot of people play this online, which means we have a lot of data that we can train on. And the way this works is that it's set at the eve of World War I, and you play as one of the 7 great powers of Europe, and because all the moves are deterministic, you can't do things on your own. So if the Stegosaurus wants to move from Budapest to Vienna, they can't do it on their own, so they need to ask someone else for help. And so they send a message, hey, can you help me do this? Sure. And so they do this, they're friends, they're working together. That's great. But then next turn, the sauropod attacks a stegosaurus in Warsaw. This is called a backstab in the game of diplomacy, and this is kind of inevitable because you work together, but if you want to win the game, there can only be one. And so this is why it's called the game that ruins friendships. Not really sure what to say except that I regret you did what you did. And so this is the kind of game that we want AIs to be able to play, to be able to build relationships and to work with people, and to be able to detect when betrayal happens. And so the model from Meta is called Cicero. It's really, really good. And we replicated their results. Cicero wins about 90% of games that it plays. But we still had some questions, and so trying to answer those questions was my student Joy at the University of Maryland. And so after reading the Meta paper, what I wanted to know is, do people recognize that Cicero is a bot? Yes, the F-score was around 0.8. Is Cicero persuasive? Yes, it does get people to do things to help it out, but less persuasive than humans. Does Cicero lie? It doesn't intentionally lie, but because it's an AI, it hallucinates, and this is a big problem. And do people trust Cicero? And so it ends up that people trust Cicero less than they trust humans, even though humans intentionally lie at a far higher rate than Cicero. And so what we wanted to do is, could we get people to be helped by Cicero to play the game of diplomacy? So we created an interface that looks a little bit like the question answering interface that we saw before. So we give people different kinds of advice. We tell people, here are moves that you could make. Here are messages that you could send. And so here are the skills that people had without any help. And so experienced players were about here, novices were about here, but when we gave novices advice, their skills went up so that the mean skill was on par with the experienced players, but obviously huge variance. What was interesting, however, is that if you only gave people move advice, they improved their skill. If you gave people message and move advice, that helped them more than getting move advice alone. But if you only gave them advice on what messages to send, their skill actually went down. And so we don't have a good theory about why this is actually happening. I think one component could be cognitive load distraction. Another component could be that the messages are conditioned on the moves that you want to make, and it could be that people, especially novices, are putting in such bad moves that it's kind of off policy for Cicero, and Cicero doesn't know how to make the best case for stupid moves. It could also be that users were perhaps talking differently with the message advice than the moves they ended up making. So inconsistency from both the algorithm and inconsistency from the user. But one nice thing is that people still had agency. They didn't always take the move advice. And especially for the message advice, they barely touched it in many cases. Okay. All right, so that was the dessert. Any questions, comments? Okay, all right, so to wrap up, LLMs are not perfect, and I think one of the things that we showed is that retrieval methods are slow but trustworthy, and this makes a case for continuing to do things like retrieval augmented generation. LLMs are okay to use, especially if you are careful in the way that you use them and making sure that LLMs are well calibrated. But I think from a philosophical perspective, we should leave humans in the driver's seat as much as possible. We need to measure application-specific outcomes. This often requires multi-turn evaluations, which is not something that we do enough of in fine-tuning our LLMs. And even the stuff that I talked about today, apart from SMART, is not specifically tuned to be helpful. We should try to improve that as much as we can, but fine-tuning models is hard. Like, these models are really big, and you need a lot of fine-tuning data to actually make that happen. And we need to focus on different outcomes. In addition to the helpfulness in doing some sort of task that I talked about today, applications like diplomacy allow you to measure things like, are you trustworthy? Are you persuasive? And those are things that we can tune as well, and that could be part of our LLM training pipeline. And I talked about applications such as supporting users to find claims and to answer questions and to negotiate. I think that this kind of approach could be applied in many similar applications, and hopefully some of you have ideas about how to do that. And so just to wrap up, helpfulness is directly tied to personalization. Using not everything that is helpful for person A is going to be helpful for person B, and we should try to measure that and try to provide that. And one of the things that we're working on is trying to fine-tune off-the-shelf models for things like playing diplomacy, trying to measure trust, cooperation, and things like that. We're exploring, getting back to Martin's question, different conversational styles for fact-checking, extending the same bandit setting. And I think particularly useful to this audience, we're also working on multimodal adversarial datasets. That wasn't far enough along for me to do a nice polished talk on that, but I would love to talk more about this. We're doing this for both audio and the visual domains, where we're trying to collect questions that are of high quality and challenging for both humans and computers. One of the things that I hinted at is we're also working on autoregressive calibration metrics, which we'll be talking about at ACL next week. And so with that, I thank you for your attention and all of the great questions throughout the talk, and happy to continue the conversation.
For abductive reasoning, you said that LLMs are far beyond behind humans. I'm curious about the nature of questions in the evaluation benchmarks. The assignment is already known for humans. For example, if we have a phenomenon, no one in the world knows the answer and assign this effect to which cause. Mm-hmm. What happens? In that sense, we can say that the LLMs never able to do this assignment, at least without having a communication with real world by, I don't know, doing an experiment or an exploration or finding some evidence?
That is a fantastic question. I don't want to say categorically that an AI could never answer such a question. I suspect that you're right, that the probability is very low. But like for the kinds of things that we've done here, like there is no way that we could validate that the answer was correct. So it's kind of out of the scope of the things that I was talking about. But like in terms of like what I think should happen is that, yeah, we should try to do more of these tasks where we ask the AI questions where we don't know the answer, they give us an answer, and we try to validate whether that answer was correct. And so I think my former student, Sheng Lei, who's now at Stanford, as I mentioned, has been doing some of this stuff. And I think that's really exciting. So like he was asking AIs to generate research plans, and then executed those research plans and looked at the results. And it does seem that, like, again, like for the things that are completely on the frontier where we don't know the answer, AIs are lagging behind humans there as well.
I wanted to ask how your work relates to the argument that Emily Bender's been making. She has this paper with the guy who believe is an IR expert, where they argue that we should not be using LLMs for question answering, or at least where you need search. If I can kind of summarize the argument, you know, it's basically the case that's most clear is you have an important medical question, If you do a traditional Google search, you get a bunch of results. You can look across the results. You can assess their trustworthiness maybe. If you just get an AI overview that tells you the answer, it may give you the wrong answer because it doesn't fully understand the context or something. Maybe it even gives you a link that you can verify it, but people just trust it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, they characterize it as a friction thing. So it's much slower to get your answer. If the AI is right, you get the answer much quicker. But if it's a very serious, life-threatening matter, you know, you want that friction there. So it seems at least partly in line with what you're saying about it depends on the context. But could you elaborate on what?
So I have seen the Twitter thread. I have not actually read the paper. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt in that. And so I think I agree in the extreme case that you were talking about. Like, if I'm trying to answer a question where the outcome is really important, then no, you should not trust an AI overview. But I think that there is a continuum, and I think that we can try to address different points on the continuum. And so, as I showed, and as you alluded to, the IR approach takes about 3 times as long in our studies, and time is valuable. And I think in many cases, when you have high confidence that the AI is going to give you the good answer, and we should improve that with calibration and personalization. And so I agree, and our approaches actually do this. You shouldn't show the AI result in all cases. In some cases, you should show the IR system instead. And so there's a continuum that we can explore, and I would think that there is some kind of Pareto optimum that is not all IR all the time, and definitely not all AI all the time.
Perhaps also I would add one comment to this because it interested me in the fact that perhaps we could work on better